Presenting our podcast, Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context, brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Say hello to your host, Gyan Dairy.
All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're heading to India to explore the world of dairy.
The Indian dairy market. Sounds interesting.
Oh, it is. It's actually more complex than you might think. We're specifically going to be focusing on one company, Gyan Dairy, kind of a rising star in the industry.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do we know about this Gyan Dairy?
Well, we've got some excerpts from a case study all about them, and our mission today is to really understand this company's journey, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the opportunities, the whole shebang.
Sounds like a plan.
Should they stick with what they know, or is it time to branch out and expand? We'll try to answer those questions.
I'm ready to dive in.
So to really appreciate Gyan's story, we need to first understand the landscape of the Indian dairy market.
All right, let's set the scene for our listeners then. What's this market like?
Well, think about it. India is a huge country with a massive population. And milk. Milk is a staple in the Indian diet.
That's right. I remember reading that it's the primary source of protein for a lot of people there.
Exactly. So we've got a huge market with high demand. But here's where it gets interesting. You've got this blend of traditional and modern ways of doing things.
So we're talking about those traditional milkmen you still see, like making deliveries by bicycle or something.
Got it. They're a big part of the scene, especially in those rural areas. But then you also have these big cooperatives like Amul. I mean, Amul is like a household name in India.
Yeah, I've heard of them. They're huge, right?
Absolutely. They're a major player. And then you've got private dairies like our subject today, Gyan Dairy, all trying to find their place in this really dynamic market.
So let's bring Gyan into the picture. Where do they fit in all of this?
Well, Gyan Dairy is actually a relatively young company. It was founded in 2007 by two brothers, Jai and Anuj Agarwal.
Okay, 2007, so not that old in the grand scheme of things.
Right, but what's interesting is they didn't come from a dairy background at all.
Oh, that's unexpected. What was their family business then?
Get this. Their family was in the chewing tobacco business.
Wow, that's a pretty big leap from chewing tobacco to milk.
Yeah, but they were looking for something with, I don't know, more growth potential, maybe something that aligned more with their values.
Yeah, I can understand that. So how'd they end up in dairy? What was their entry point?
It wasn't a straight path. They actually started out by supplying packaged milk to a larger company.
Okay, so they kind of got their feet wet behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Oh.
But then, that contract they had, it unexpectedly ended.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a setback.
It could have been, but instead of giving up, they saw it as an opportunity.
I like that kind of thinking. What do they do?
They took a risk and launched their own brand, Gyan, entering the consumer market head-on.
That's brave. To go from, like, being a supplier to having your own brand.
Right. It was a pivotal moment for them.
And it seems to have paid off, at least from what we've seen so far.
They've been doing pretty well. One of their key strategies has been building those strong relationships with farmers.
Yeah, that's something you don't always see in the business world, that real emphasis on relationships.
It's something they take seriously. It's not just about contracts. It's about treating farmers fairly, paying them promptly.
Which I'm guessing is a big deal in this industry.
Huge. They also provide, high-quality cattle feed through a subsidiary they have called Gyan Dairy.
So they're really invested in supporting the whole supply chain. Smart move.
Absolutely. They've built this reputation for being honest, for being transparent, It's all about trust.
And that trust is crucial, especially in a country like India, where a lot of dairy farming is, small-scale family operations.
It is. So, Gyan's really created this win-win situation. Happy farmers, happy customers.
And likely a happy bottom line for Gyan, too.
Indeed. And they've got the numbers to prove it. In 2020, their revenue significantly increased.
Okay, so they're clearly doing something right.
Definitely. But now they're at a crossroads, trying to figure out their next big move. And that's where things get really interesting.
So they're doing well, but they need to figure out how to keep that momentum going.
Exactly. They're at this point where they need to decide, what's their next big move? Do they double down on what they're already doing, or do they try something completely new?
Classic business dilemma. Stick with what you know, or take a risk.
Right. And in Gyan's case, it boils down to two main paths they're considering.
Okay, lay them out for me. What are the options on the table?
Option number one, really focus on strengthening their position in their current markets.
Yeah.
Mainly, we're talking about Uttar Pradesh, where they already have a good foothold.
Makes sense they've got that brand recognition there, those relationships with the farmers that we talked about. Seems like a solid foundation to build on.
Right. So they could really leverage what they've already built.
Yeah.
But what would that actually look like in action?
Well, one idea they're exploring is tapping into this whole trend of hyper-local delivery.
Hyper-local delivery, huh?
Yeah. Like imagine getting your fresh milk and dairy products delivered straight to your door every morning.
Ah, like a modern version of the milkman. I can see the appeal of that.
Right. Especially for, busy people in those urban areas who maybe don't have time to make a trip to the store every day.
Convenience is king. But wouldn't they need to invest a lot in logistics to make that happen? I mean, keeping those dairy products fresh, especially in India's climate, can't be easy.
Oh, for sure. They'd need a top-notch cold chain network, probably refrigerated trucks, a smooth online ordering system. It's a big undertaking.
Sounds like it. But the potential payoff could be pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, think about how much online grocery shopping has exploded, even here.
True. And beyond the whole delivery aspect, they've also got the option of expanding their product line.
Oh, right. They've already started branching out into those value-added products, haven't they?
Yeah. But there's one product in particular that they're really excited about, Koya.
Koya, I'm not familiar with that.
It's a milk solid that's used in a ton of Indian sweets. Think like gulab jamun, barfi, all those delicious treats.
Ah, okay. So basically a key ingredient in a country with a serious sweet tooth.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Right now, the Koya market is mostly dominated by, like, small producers who aren't really organized.
Yeah.
But Gyan, they've invested in a huge, like, really modern Koya production facility. The largest one in the whole world, actually.
Wow, so they're going big on Koya.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to change the game, create a premium packaged Koya product that people can trust. Plus, they've actually gotten a patent for their production method.
Sounds like they're in a good position to really shake things up. But even with all those positives, I'm sure there are some challenges with this option too.
Oh, definitely. They're going up against some big names in the dairy industry.
Like Amul and Mother Dairy, those are the giants, right?
Right. And those guys have massive distribution networks, tons of money for marketing. It's like David versus Goliath, but Gyan has shown they're not afraid to take on a challenge.
They've got that scrappy underdog spirit.
They do. Okay, so that's option one, focus on their existing markets. Option two is a bit bolder, expanding into new territories. And the city they've got their eye on is Kolkata.
Kolkata. Okay, tell me about Kolkata. What makes it so attractive to Gyan?
Well, it's a huge city in eastern India, a major metropolitan area. But the dairy market there, it's pretty much wide open. Not many big branded dairy players have really established themselves there.
Ah, so it's like a fresh start, a chance to be the big fish in a new pond.
Exactly. But I imagine the logistics of operating in a new region so far from their current base would be incredibly complex.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Transporting milk that distance while keeping it fresh, high quality, that's a huge hurdle. They'd probably need to set up a whole new processing plant near Kolkata. We're talking a massive investment.
And that's not even considering the whole supplier side of things. They'd need to find new farmers, build new relationships.
And that takes time. Plus, they'd need to really understand the Kolkata market, What do consumers there want? What are their preferences? Even cultural factors could come into play. It's a whole new ball game.
It sounds like they'd have a lot to learn.
Definitely a steep learning curve. But if they can pull it off, imagine the rewards.
So high risk, high reward.
Exactly. If they succeed in Kolkata, it would basically give them a blueprint for expanding to other regions. They could become, a truly national player. That's the dream, right?
It's a big dream. So we've got option one, sticking with what they know, building on their strengths. And we've got option two, expanding into new territory, taking on more risk, but with the potential for much bigger growth. Tough choice.
It is a tough choice. And to make things even more complicated, there are some bigger industry trends that could impact their decision no matter which way they go.
Okay, this is where it gets even more interesting. What kind of trends are we talking about? What's changing in the world of Indian dairy? We were talking about those industry trends that could really shake things up for Gyan. Can you tell me more about those? Like, what exactly is changing in the Indian dairy industry these days?
Well, one of the biggest things is technology. I mean, it's really impacting just about every industry, and dairy is no exception. We're seeing all these tech-driven startups popping up, really changing how things are done.
Okay, so give me some examples. How is technology changing the game in Indian dairy?
Well, some of these startups are all about those subscription-based delivery models, using apps to connect customers directly with farmers or dairies.
So kind of like what Gyan's doing with their hyperlocal delivery service, Gyan Fresh.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about that convenience and customization that, younger consumers really seem to want these days.
So it seems like Gyan's on the right track, at least as far as technology goes.
I'd say so, yeah. They're definitely keeping up with the times. Another big trend we're seeing is this growing demand for like organic milk and A2 milk.
That makes sense. People are definitely more health conscious these days, willing to spend a little extra for those products they see as healthier. But does Gyan have any, like, organic or A2 offerings?
Not yet, at least not that I'm aware of, but it's something they're probably going to have to think about. If they only stick with those conventional products, they could miss out on a whole segment of the market.
So they might need to find some organic farms to partner with, or maybe invest in their own organic production, huh?
Exactly. They've got to stay flexible, adapt to those changing tastes. Doesn't matter if they choose to expand or just focus on their current markets. They got to keep up with what consumers want.
Makes sense. Now, there's one more big thing we haven't talked about yet that's really had an impact on, well, everything. COVID-19.
Oh, yeah. The pandemic definitely accelerated some of these trends we're talking about, especially that whole shift towards e-commerce and home delivery.
Right. So how has the pandemic specifically affected the Indian dairy industry?
Well, early on, there were some issues with supply chains, and a lot of panic buying, just like everywhere else. But it quickly became clear that, people still needed milk. The demand for dairy, especially packaged milk, stayed strong. And with everyone stuck at home, a lot of people started buying their groceries online.
So it sounds like Gyan's investment in their delivery app, Gyan Fresh, could really give them an advantage now.
Oh, absolutely. They've been ahead of the curve on that one. And they've been smart about using that online platform to communicate with customers, giving updates about safety and letting people know what's available. That kind of transparency can really build trust.
Especially during those uncertain times, for sure. Well, it seems like Gyan has a lot on their plate. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from their unique origin story to their dedication to those farmer relationships, not to mention the ever-changing Indian dairy market as a whole.
It really is a fascinating case study, isn't it? They've shown they're resilient, innovative. It'll be interesting to see what path they ultimately choose and how they handle all those challenges, all those opportunities out there.
It's a tough decision, for sure, but I guess that's what makes it so interesting to analyze. So to our listener out there, we want to hear from you. What were your biggest takeaways from this deep dive into Gyan Dairy? Knowing what you now know, what do you think their best move is?
We've only just scratched the surface, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point. Remember, it's not just about the numbers, it's about their values, those relationships with their farmers, their commitment to quality.
It's a complex situation.
Yeah.
No easy answers. And that's what makes it so compelling, right? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Gyan Dairy. We'll catch you on the next one.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context. Subscribe to the podcast. And a reminder, this episode was brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.